This is from the Canadian Parliament Senate Governmental Information. It states that Canada is a constitutional monarchy since 1534, when the King of France claimed possessions of what is now Canada. The history of our country has been marked by the reigns of an uninterrupted succession of monarchs, both French and British, who have had a significant influence on our country's development. This is the Canadian Constitution Act of 1867, Article 9. The executive government and authority of and over Canada is hereby declared to continue and be vested in the Queen. So when we look into the Canadian Constitution Act of 1867, Article 9, we see some words that are written in that article of law. And if you just skim by it, you won't really catch it. But if you're doing a research, a study on the history of Canada and where these powers or de facto powers have extended from, you're going to find something very interesting jump out at you. In Article 9, it states that the executive power is hereby declared to continue and be vested in the Queen. So, they're talking about the executive power, the ruling power. The ruling authority over Canada is hereby declared to continue. Notice that word here, continue. It didn't say to start. So whatever power that we're talking about here, it's something from before. And that power was transferred into, you will, the monarchy or the Queen here in Canada. Because it says an executive power is hereby declared to continue. So whatever power this is continuing now, and it's being vested or given to the Queen. So now we're going to ask ourselves a question. Well, what is this power that they're talking about, that they're claiming is continuing and being vested in the Queen? And where did it come from? And what has it got to do with me personally? So if you look back on the internet, and if you do a little bit of research concerning the history of Canada, you're going to come up with a lot of conflicting information. Some good, some not so good. Just like anything, you need to learn how to filter out what's true and what's not. Anyways, there's an indication that in 1497, John Cabot, under the direction of King Henry VII, claimed Canada as his own possession. He said, Canada belongs to my king, John Cabot. And then in 1534, we all heard this story of a man called Jacques Cartier. Jacques Cartier. Well, in 1534, the King of France, King Francois, he sent him out on a journey, and he discovered North America. And he claimed it on behalf of the King of France, King Francois. Now, Jacques Cartier, when he was on this territory, he built a 30-foot wooden cross, which was a pretty big cross for those days. And he put on it a fleur-de-lis. And he put a plaque on that cross, Vive la Roi de France. You know, in the religious cross where they wrote Jesus Christ, the King of the Jews. Well, they put on top, instead of that, they put Vive la Roi de France. Then he knelt down to pray. That's the official story as it goes. So here we have two official stories, two accepted stories, in which the law is built off of this history. The law stems from this history, so it's an important factor. Now, in both of these cases, whether 1497 or 1534, you have a king, King Henry and King Francois, sending out their servant, finding North America or laying claim to the territory, to the land, and all the minerals and all the rights to that land. Personally, this is where it begins to affect me as a human being, because this guy's kingship I don't recognize, I will never recognize, and it has no bearing to do with my life. And this guy's kingship, the same thing. I don't recognize, I never have recognized, and will not recognize. Therefore, whatever these guys want to claim and want to say that God in the Bible told them they could do, well, hey, I don't know, for all I know, you're delusional, and what you're claiming is ridiculous. So based upon that, you have nothing to say about me. Now the only problem is, the suckers, and I'm sorry to use that word, the servants, the slaves, the ones who don't want to think for themselves, the ones who want to have the dog collars put upon their neck and led, and being told what to do, and being sheltered from reality, they wanted kings. And they wanted rulers over their head. And they bowed down and they worshiped these rulers. And they said, whatever you say, that's the word for me. Whatever you say, you're God to me. Well, what's that got to do with me? And what's that got to do with my choices of who I am here nowadays? Nothing. In fact, I think that if we would bring forth these people here to our society here in 2012, I think they would kind of get how would you say that? A little kick in their heart to say, why am I worshiping another man? Why am I bowing down and serving and following and bringing my reverence for another man? Or a woman, the queen, whatever it may be. It's because the mentality back then was different. And you want to know why that is? If you go and check for yourself. Because Catholicism, Catholics, the Catholic Church, where all this is stemming from, when they started their religious doctrine in 345 AD, they didn't give you a choice. It was you serve them or they kill you. When they rang that church bell, it was you had the obligation to come to church. And if you didn't come to church, you were considered a heretic. There was something wrong with you. There was something wrong with you because you didn't submit to what these guys were telling you. And they would kill you. They would kill you and your families. Go and check the Inquisitions. Go and watch the videos that are available for you to gain knowledge about the Inquisitions and see the way these ones in power acted, and these ones in their power, their authority acted, and where they drew their rights from and what they did to human beings like me and you. And now you want us in 2012 to bow down our knees and to submit ourselves to all this garbage that was brought up back 200, 400, 500 years ago. So back in those days, the king, he made the laws. He's the one who instilled the laws. And if you didn't follow them, the people don't follow them, then his guards and his officers would kill you or punish you. Now what I'm trying to show you from here, get you to see from here, is that it was the king who made the laws. And it was his guards and his officers, all an elite, higher than you. You're in servitude to that. Well, look at that. Apply this into Canada now. This continued power that's been invested in the queen. What is this all about? It's about what? A queen now who makes the laws. These laws are given royal assent. Through what? The lieutenant governors of our country. Royal assent. Make the laws. And if you don't follow them, then guess what? Her guards and her officers will try to punish you. Now, I'm not talking about criminal activity. If you're a thief and you're stealing from other people's work, if you are selling drugs, hard drugs to young people, or to even men, and binding them up, that's not what I'm talking about. That is not correct. You shouldn't be doing that, in my opinion. You have your own rights and choice to do in your life. What I'm talking about, though, is laws, enactments, regulations, and statutes that are given force of law, that are pushed upon human beings. And if you don't want to follow them, if you say, listen, I don't have the obligation to follow them. Why? Because I'm a human being, and I'm not your servant, and I'm not your slave, and you can't force me to bow my knee down before you. Then they're going to try and punish you. They're going to try and use the laws that the queen, the king made to punish you. How? Through her guards and her officers. Officers of the court, officers of the crown. There's two systems going on here in Canada. One, if you want to draw a line, one which is righteous, one which is I approve of. And that comes out in more partially the Criminal Code of Canada. Most of that code is a wonderful code, according to my opinion. You can have your own opinion. But there's a secondary system that's in operation here in Canada, in these enactments and in these regulations that are given force of law. They're using these laws and these regulations to take from us human beings, to take away from our lives, to take away from our equity, and to give it to the higher-ups, to these kings and queens who rule. And if you think I'm joking, just look at the national debt. $160 million a day of interest, more now, but $160 million a day getting taken away from the human beings in this country to give to the international bankers. Why? Because they say so. And if you stand up and say, hang on, I don't want to pay that debt. It's a prescription debt. It's a false debt. It's created money through computer strokes. Why should I give of my hard life, my energy, my earnings to you? Why should I do that? You know what they'll do? They'll come after you with their officers and their guards. And they'll try and punish you in order for you to get back in line. This whole system is a rigged system. And more as I learn about it, more and more as I experience it and live in it and see how it affects the human beings around me, it does have to come down. We need to make a change. We who are impacted by this system, why are we allowing ourselves to live under this tyranny? Why are we allowing ourselves to operate under a system that's 500-600 years old, that stems from superstition and religious views? I don't have any right now to stand on this territory and say, you know what, everything belongs to me. I have a big army with big guns and big bombs, and everything belongs to me. So what the heck gave them the right to do that back then? Nothing but their superiority in weaponry and in armies, and saying that if you don't submit to me and my laws that I'm claiming are coming from God through my books, I'm going to kill you. And that's the reality of it. I get the feeling that people think that I'm not for governance, that I'm just for a wild west party. Let's just go and do anything that we want to do. And that's a silly way of thinking. Nothing ever works like that. There's nothing that works that doesn't have structure. Everything in life teaches us, in nature and even in this commercial system, that everything has to have a structure. So even talking about freedom and being free from this tyranny that's being expressed in our country, on our land, we need a structure. So don't get it in your head that I'm in this rebellion or in this way that I'm teaching that, oh, we should just, rebel here in Canada and everything should just go to high hell. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is that this is ridiculous. When you understand what's transpiring against us, it is ridiculous. Why do we allow our wealth on individual levels, and why do we allow our wealth to be taken away from us and given to the few? Why? Because the politicians allow it. Then the politicians need to go. Why? Because that's the way the system's structured. Well, then the system has to be restructured. Because you know what? It's unfair and it's unjust. And it's not right what's transpiring here in our country. In other countries, they're worse off than us. I don't know if I can even say that, because here it's really, really well hidden. Here, this darkness that's going on all around us, it's really well hidden, and we've just been lullabied to sleep. Ooh, just accept it. Go with the flow, and that's it. Well, that's the way it is, and that's the way it's always going to be. We want answers in life usually. When I don't know how to explain this or how to get this across, but let me just go. Usually we want answers to questions. You understand? We seek the answers when something goes wrong with our car. Oh, why is my car making this funny noise? Let me go to the mechanic and check it out. Let me go to a mechanic and see why my car is making the noise. Now I got the answer for that question. But yet, when we come down to it, why is it like this in our country? Why are we suffering this oppression? Why are we going through this? It's just like, oh well, I don't know, or I can't get the answer, or the answer is going to be too hard to find. No, it's going to take us to get to that level where we get hungry enough to say, you know what, I want that answer. Maybe I didn't want it before, but now I want it. And when you begin to search and do the research and see what's going on and how they're claiming these things against you and how they're taking away from your life and how they're yoking you up to a system that's meant to beat you up and defeat you, it's disgusting. And it makes it hard for a man who understands that to sleep at night. And I tell you that from first-hand experience.